You're listening to The Jacob Valk Show. He's breaking down the latest and greatest in sports as only he can. Follow him on Twitter @RealJacobValk. Here he is, Jacob Valk.
Hello, sports fans! Welcome to a special Christmas Eve episode of the Jacob Valk Show. I am the Jacob Valk, except no imitation. I've got to start with Niners-Titans. What a gutsy win by Tennessee. You've got Ryan Tannehill putting the team on his back, finding A.J. Brown 11 times for 145 yards and a touchdown. You remember when I said A.J. Brown wouldn't be at 100%? Yeah, I don't remember saying that either. Yesterday, that didn't happen. That's fake news. No. I got it wrong. Certainly not the first time. Definitely won't be the last time. Give Brown a ton of credit. Maybe he wasn't at 100%. Maybe he was, but regardless, he had an excellent game. I mean, he was incredible. Like I said, he had 145 receiving yards. You know how many total yards of offense the Titans had? 278. Brown accounted for more than half of the Titans' offensive output yesterday. That is simply incredible. It was a great job by Tannehill to lead his team back to victory after being down 10-0 at the half. A lot of people were writing the Titans off at that point. People were writing them off before the game. They were writing them off during the game. At the end of the day, for the Titans to outscore the Niners 20-7 in the second half, that's impressive. For Tannehill to lead his team on that big 2-minute drill, that's impressive. For Randy Bullock to kick the eventual game-winning field goal, that's impressive. This was a gutsy win by the Titans. I mean, you'd be a fool to write the Titans off as we head into the playoffs. You did that a couple years ago when they were going up against the Patriots and Ravens. The Titans beat both those teams. You didn't think they had a snowball's chance in hell of beating the Chiefs that year. You know what? They gave the Chiefs a run for their money in that game. Mike Vrabel is a master motivator. I mean, he didn't try to shelter his team from the outside noise. He had them embrace it. Hey, everyone's counting you out? Prove them wrong. I mean, now the Titans are 10-5. This is the first time since the 07 and 08 seasons that they've had back-to-back double-digit win seasons. They're the 2 seed in the AFC. And if the Chiefs lose to the Steelers at Arrowhead on Sunday, unlikely, but any team can be better than any other team on any given day of the week. The Titans will be tied with the Chiefs for the 1 seed. The Patriots could be tied too. If they beat the Bills in Foxborough, we could have a 3-way tie for the 1 seed. That would be pretty crazy. This was an outstanding job by the Titans. You can't say enough good things about this win. Their defense was really good. Jack Rabbit with the big red zone pick. Zach Cunningham was really good. Amani Hooker was really good. He had the other interception. Don't worry, I'll get into Garoppolo in a second. I just want to sing the Titans' praises a little bit. They deserve it. Kevin Byard was really good. Rashaan Evans was really good. Naquan Jones came out of nowhere to have a good game. This is just a gutsy Titans team. There's no other word for it. They're a team that if you count them out, they'll make you look foolish. I mean, I counted them out. I was dead wrong. Just a great, great, great win for them. Their fans were really into it towards the end. With Derrick Henry possibly coming back for the playoffs, the Titans are a force to be reckoned with. There's no question about that. The Chiefs aren't world beaters. They're the favorites in the AFC, even if Henry comes back. Even if the Chiefs lose on Sunday, they're still the favorites. But they're not as dominant as they've been in years past. Patrick Mahomes has had moments where he's looked really bad. Now, granted, as of recently, the Chiefs have put it all together. They've won 7 straight. They've beaten some really good teams. The Packers, the Cowboys, the Chargers, the Broncos, the Raiders twice. Like I said, the Chiefs are the favorites. But given what we saw earlier in the year, I don't think you can view the Chiefs as a lock, stock, and barrel favorite in the AFC. They are ripe for an upset. The Titans could be that team to do it. I mean, realize, earlier in the year, the Titans destroyed the Chiefs. 27-3. It wouldn't stun me if the Titans upset the Chiefs in the playoffs. But now to get into the Niners. This is a tough loss. You remember when I said I'm not a big Kyle Shanahan fan and I'm not a big Jimmy Garoppolo fan, but I was trying to be fair and give them credit for being 8-6, now 8-7, but at the time they were 8-6. Yeah, no, these guys are bad. Garoppolo made throws that you just can't make. I mean, an interception in the end zone is unforgivable. I don't care what the circumstances are. That is just an absolute cardinal sin. You cannot throw a pick in the end zone. You've got to get points in that spot. If the defense comes up big and forces you to kick, okay, but at least you're getting points. You can't throw a red zone pick. And one thing you definitely can't do. This was the turning point in the game. The Titans got the ball back to start the second half. They go on a big drive, convert 3 third downs. Finally, the Niners remember how to play defense. They force Randy Bullock to kick a 38-yard field goal. It's 10-3 Niners. The next play from scrimmage, Garoppolo throws a pick. The Titans finally got off the schneid. They finally got something going on offense. They were finally getting some momentum. Don't give me this garbage that momentum isn't a real thing. It absolutely is. That pick gave the Titans the ball at the Niners' 18-yard line. 4 plays later, they tie the game. All of a sudden, this game that the Niners were dominating, it looked like it would be a snooze fest in the second half. The Titans come back, tie it up, take the lead on their next drive, and the Niners never had the lead again. They tied it up late in the fourth quarter. Then they allowed the big 9-play drive, the 2-minute drill. Excellent job by Tannehill. And the pick to Hooker is just a throw that you cannot make. Was Deebo Samuel open? Hard to say. It looks like there was a little bit of a throwing lane if Garoppolo would let the play go for like a second longer. Samuel was running a crossing route. It looked like he had the angle on everyone. I mean, at the end of the day, Samuel is the best or second best weapon that Garoppolo has. He was certainly the best weapon yesterday because George Kittle was a non-factor. Give the Titans credit for that. They let Samuel go off. 9 catches for 159 yards. But they limited Kittle. One would think that the offensive genius Kyle Shanahan could find ways to scheme Kittle open, but no, he didn't do that. So look, I don't blame Garoppolo for wanting to get the ball to Deebo Samuel, but I do blame him for throwing a ball basically right to Amani Hooker. Samuel had no chance at that ball. At the end of the day, you've got to give your guy a chance. That was just a terrible throw. You cannot make that throw. Period. I mean, you're watching the game at that point, and you just sense the momentum shifting. You hear the crowd getting back into it. The Titans had new life, and the Niners just fizzled out. This was a game that the Niners should have won. They had more first downs than the Titans. They had more total yards. In fact, it wasn't even close. The Titans had 278. The Niners had 389. The Niners led in time of possession. They punted less. It was a game that the Niners really should have won easily. Like, that second half should have been a coronation for the Niners. Now, they're 8-7. And not for nothing, but they're in danger of falling out of the playoffs. If the Vikings, Eagles, and Saints win, there will be a 4-team tie for the final 2 wildcard spots in the NFC. Will all 3 of those teams win? Probably not. I don't see the Vikings beating the Rams. I don't care if that game's in Minnesota. The Eagles will beat the Giants. That game is in Philly. Either Mike Glennon or Jake Fromm is going to get the start for the Giants. The Eagles are going to win that game. And the Saints are going to start Ian Book against a really hot Dolphins team. I don't care if that game's in New Orleans. I don't see Ian Book beating a good Dolphins team in his first NFL start. But look, the point is the Niners could have put some distance between themselves and the teams chasing them. They didn't do that. We're going to have a dogfight in the playoffs in these final weeks of the season. There are 2 games happening tomorrow on Christmas Day that I want to talk about. The NFL is going up against the NBA. Pretty interesting. It'll be fascinating to see what wins the ratings battle. You look at the 2 NFL games, it's Browns-Packers and Colts-Cardinals. Browns-Packers starts at 4:30. So if you want to watch that game, you're missing the end of Celtics-Bucks and basically all of Warriors-Suns. I don't see that ending well for the NFL. If the Celtics-Bucks game is close, no one's going to turn it off to watch the start of an NFL game. I'll miss the first few plays of the opening drive to watch the end of Celtics-Bucks. If it's a close game, I'm doing that. And Warriors-Suns, a preview of what's probably going to be the Western Conference Finals, sign me up. You want to tell me the NFL could have a leg up because their game is starting before Warriors-Suns? Okay, I understand that logic. At the end of the day, if you get invested in a game, it's kind of hard to turn it off. The thing is, though, I think Browns-Packers is going to be a rout. Let's say Baker Mayfield gets the start. This guy hasn't practiced at all. So you expect this guy to go into Lambeau Field and beat the Packers? I don't see that happening. I don't see Case Keenum doing that. I don't see Nick Mullins doing that. I can't get into that game. I can't get into a 500 Browns team, the team that's last in their division, going to Green Bay to face one of the best teams in football. I'm much more interested in Warriors-Suns. Colts-Cardinals, the late game, that's interesting. I mean, it's an easy decision for me because the Nets are playing the Lakers at 8 o'clock. I'm going to watch my favorite team play. But if you're without a rooting interest in that game, you've got a Nets team that's going to be without Kevin Durant going up against a Lakers team that's really bad right now and is without Anthony Davis. I mean, don't let the fact that the Lakers are 6th in the West fool you. They are a bad team. I'll get more into it a little later, but they are without question the most disappointing team in the NBA this year. So look, if you don't have a rooting interest in that game, yeah, you'll watch Colts-Cardinals. I get that. That's fair. The really late game is Mavericks-Jazz. That's a good game. Maybe you'll flip-flop. Or maybe you'll stick with the good football game. Whatever your preference is. The point is, the NFL will lose the early game battle, but they'll put up a fight in the late game battle. Now, I don't want to preview the early game. There's nothing I could say about it. The Browns are going in at less than 100%. The Packers have every advantage in the world. I think the Packers are going to win that game comfortably. Colts-Cardinals? That's interesting. That's going to be a really, really good game. Now, usually when I do these previews, I start with the quarterback. After all, quarterback is the most important position in sports. Can't do that here. The quarterback for the Colts, Carson Wentz, is not the most important player on Indy. Their most important player is Jonathan Taylor. Taylor is having a season for the ages. He is leading the NFL in rushing yards with 1,518. He is leading the NFL in rushing touchdowns with 17. It is very tough for a non-quarterback to win MVP. It's been done, but not since 2012 when Adrian Peterson won MVP. Jonathan Taylor has a real chance of winning MVP. It's really a three-person race between Tom Brady, Jonathan Taylor, and Cooper Kupp. Brady's leading in passing yards and touchdowns, Taylor's leading in rushing yards and touchdowns, and Kupp is leading in receiving yards and touchdowns. It's very hard to differentiate between the three. I'll say this. Brady's grip on the passing touchdowns lead is not ironclad. Every other mark that I mentioned is. But Brady has only thrown one more touchdown than Matthew Stafford. It's possible that Stafford eclipses Brady or ties Brady. If that happens, something interesting can happen. Brady's case to win MVP gets lessened, and there is something to be said about MVP fatigue. Brady has won 3 MVPs. Do you want to give him a 4th? I mean, that can happen. It may not be the fairest thing in the world, but it can happen. But let's say Stafford ties Brady or even takes the lead. Who's more valuable to the Rams at that point? Matthew Stafford or Cooper Kupp? Stafford may end up canceling Kupp out a little bit. So that may open the door for a guy like Taylor to win MVP. I could see myself casting my imaginary vote for Jonathan Taylor. When I do my NFL award picks, I could see myself picking Taylor. Here's an interesting fact for you about Taylor. He was picked with a pick that was not initially the Colts'. The Colts moved up 3 spots to take him. You know what team traded down? The Cleveland Browns. Now, granted, the Browns didn't need Taylor. They had Nick Chubb and Kareem Hunt. It's just funny that a franchise as tortured as the Browns traded the pick that became Jonathan Taylor. Now, the Cardinals don't have a terrible rush defense, but they don't have a great rush defense either. They've given up the 17th fewest rushing yards. That puts them in the middle of the pack. They've given up the 3rd fewest rushing touchdowns. That's excellent. But they've also given up the 6th most yards per carry. That's not good. It's going to be up to guys like Devon Kennard and Marcus Golden and Chandler Jones and Zaven Collins and guys like that to really step up and limit Taylor. Now, obviously, that's easier said than done. Obviously, I wish them a ton of luck. But at the end of the day, that's what you gotta do. Meanwhile, you look at the Cardinals. You don't need me to tell you about them. Kyler Murray's great. He made his 2nd straight Pro Bowl this year. Christian Kirk and AJ Green are having really, really good seasons. No DeAndre Hopkins, though. He's on IR. So let's see if Rondale Moore can step in and replace him. I mean, there's no replacing Nuke, but let's see if he can negate his absence. I mean, this game is in Arizona, but the Colts are entering with a cleaner bill of health. No Hopkins scares me. Even Rondale Moore is questionable. He has an ankle injury. I mean, the Colts are healthier. They have their big guns on defense. Guys like Darius Leonard, Kwity Paye, DeForest Buckner, and Kenny Moore. This is tough. This is tough to make a pick for. The Cardinals are favored by 1. That's basically a pick'em. I mean, I'm not going to do any more NFL picks this year. A, I was under 500. B, I missed 2 weeks. So let it end with a whimper this year. Boy, this is tough. The Cardinals are slumping right now. They've lost 2 straight. I don't see them losing 3 straight. I mean, I'm not a Cliff Kingsbury fan. And certainly they've had these epic choke jobs before. So it wouldn't stun me, but the game is in Arizona. I don't see the Cardinals losing in front of their home fans on Christmas Day. It wouldn't stun me if the Colts won, but I'm going to go with the Cardinals. Alright, now I'll give you some NBA Valk talk. I like previewing the NBA's Christmas Day games. It's going to be really tough to do this year since the NBA is going through a huge COVID outbreak, but it can be done. I'll start with Hawks-Knicks. Obviously, the Hawks have a big COVID outbreak. No Trae Young, no Clint Capella. Kevin Huerter's going through the COVID protocols. No Danilo Gallinari, no Lou Williams. Cam Reddish is dealing with an ankle injury. DeAndre Hunter's dealing with a wrist injury. The Hawks are the walking wounded out there. I mean, John Collins is going to need 30 points. Bogdan Bogdanović is going to need 20. Who else is left? Who else is left on the Hawks that scares you? Look, I'm sorry, but if John Collins and Bogdan Bogdanović are your 2 best players, you're not going to win. It's just that simple. I mean, granted, the Knicks are a little banged up too, but nothing like the Hawks. Obviously, Derrick Rose has that ankle injury, really sad. Can you think of a guard in NBA history that has had his career more affected by injuries than Derrick Rose? Greg Oden was a center. Sam Bowie was a power forward. Bill Walton was a center. Zion's a front court player. Seriously, can you think of a guard that has had his career more affected by injuries than Derrick Rose? In NBA history, I don't think there is one. This guy was on a trajectory to be one of the best players in the NBA. The guy won MVP. Put up 25 points a game. I don't want to say he was a future Hall of Famer, but you didn't fault people for saying that. Then he just got hurt, and hurt, and hurt, and hurt again. Then again, then again, then again. It's crazy. On the bright side, it did open up the door for Kemba Walker to return to the rotation. And in Walker's 3 games back, he hasn't scored less than 21 points. In fact, yesterday, against the Wizards, he dropped 44, 9, and 8. Yet somehow, someway, the Knicks still lost. Remember when we all thought the Knicks would be good? Remember when the Knicks were good? It's kind of funny. This was a playoff matchup last year. Hawks-Knicks. Now, the Hawks are the 10 seed, so it's possible they can sneak into the playoffs via the play-in tournament. Meanwhile, the Knicks are the 12 seed. They're out. I mean, say what you want about the Knicks, but at least they have their best player. Now, granted, Julius Randle is not having as good a season as he had last year, but the Hawks are without their best player, and the Knicks aren't. That means something. RJ Barrett may play if he gets in game shape. I don't want to say he's out of shape, but he was held out of yesterday's game because of conditioning. So, yeah, Barrett has some work to do. Emmanuel Quickley's back. And obviously the Knicks still have Evan Fournier. They have Alec Burks. The Knicks are going to win this game. It's at the Garden. The Hawks will be trotting out a skeleton crew. You're going to see guys who you have no idea what they're doing on Atlanta. The Knicks are winning this game, and realistically, it shouldn't be close. Moving on now to Celtics-Bucks. The Celtics are another team that's going through a big COVID outbreak. Now, it hasn't affected their big guns, but it certainly affected their depth. Al Horford is in the protocols. Josh Richardson is in the protocols. Inez Freedom is in the protocols. Grant Williams is in the protocols. Jabari Parker's in the protocols. It's possible that Horford, Parker, and Williams play. They can test out by tomorrow, but with COVID, who knows what's going to happen. But at least the Celtics still have Jason Tatum, Jaylen Brown, and Dennis Schroeder. And of course, they brought in Joe Johnson. Because Joe Johnson is the missing piece for the Celtics, right? I mean, I don't want to knock them. I understand they're in an impossible position. It's just funny to see 40-year-old Joe Johnson, who's been out of the NBA since 2018, playing in a meaningful basketball game. And he scored, too. That was great. He came in garbage time and scored. Joe Johnson actually broke a record with that appearance. Johnson was actually drafted by the Celtics, 10th overall in the 2001 draft. Rick Pitino traded him midway through his rookie season, along with a few other pieces, for Tony Delk and Rodney Rogers. Rodney Rogers, former Net. Good player for those finals-making teams. So with that appearance, Johnson broke a record previously held by James Edwards for most days in between an outing for the same team. James Edwards started his NBA career with the Lakers. Then he was traded to the Pacers, bounced around a little bit, then went back to the Lakers in 92. I bet you didn't even know that was a record that people kept track of. That's okay, I didn't either until I saw it. And I'll say this, Johnson is shattering the record. Edwards had 5,444 days. between his rookie season with the Lakers and when he came back. Johnson, between his rookie season and when he played, over 7,240. That is incredible. Meanwhile, you look at the Bucks. Giannis should play. He has cleared COVID protocols. There's no good reason why he wouldn't play. I'll say this, the NBA would be very upset if he didn't play. And that does mean something. The league can lean on you a little bit and say, hey, we want all marquee players playing if they can. So odds are Giannis will play, Chris Middleton will play, Jrue Holiday will play. At the end of the day, if you have an NBA Finals winning Big Three, plus the depth that the Bucks have, Bobby Portis maybe, Grayson Allen definitely, Pat Connaughton, Boogie, Jordan Nwora, you're gonna do good things in this league. Like, it's kind of funny. People talk about who's gonna represent the East in the NBA Finals. Obviously, they say the Nets. The Bulls are getting some love. The Heat are getting some love. The Bucks really aren't, and they should. This is a really good, really well-rounded Bucks team. Give Mike Budenholzer a ton of credit. The Bucks are healthier than the Celtics. The game is in Milwaukee. They're going to win this game. Moving on now to the game of the day. Like I said, probably a Western Conference Finals preview. Warriors-Suns. We saw this matchup earlier this month. The Warriors steamrolled the Suns. I don't see that happening here. Firstly, in that game, Devin Booker didn't play. Secondly, the Warriors had Jordan Poole and Andrew Wiggins. Booker will play for the Suns. Wiggins and Poole are out because of COVID. Is that a death sentence for the Warriors? No, it's not. At the end of the day, Steph Curry will always give you a chance to win. This guy is the best shooter in NBA history. He was the best shooter in NBA history before he broke Reggie Miller's record. Alright, this guy has been the best shooter in NBA history for the past 5 years or so. Although here's an interesting stat for you about Curry. He has never led the NBA in three-point percentage. He's led the NBA in three-pointers made and three-pointers attempted many times. But three-point percentage, he's never led the NBA. The closest he got was runner-up in 15-16. You know who led the NBA in three-point percentage that year? J.J. Redick. Curry hit 45.4% of his threes. Redick hit 47.5%. I mean, look, for the Warriors to win, Curry's going to need to drop like 40 points. The thing is, Curry can do that. He's capable of doing that. So even though the Warriors are without their second and third leading scorers, I'm not going to sit here and tell you that the Warriors have no chance in this game. But I'll say this, I do think the Suns are going to win it. Even though they're off that epic 18-game win streak. They're currently on a 5-game win streak, nothing to sneeze at. They've actually avoided the coronavirus. I don't know how, but give them credit. At the end of the day, guys like Devin Booker, DeAndre Ayton, and Chris Paul, can match Steph Curry's output. Even if Curry drops 40 or 50, Booker, Ayton, and Paul are good for 50. And you combine that with guys like Mikal Bridges and Cam Johnson and JaVale McGee and Cameron Payne. I don't see how the Suns lose this game. I don't want to give the Warriors no chance, but I find it highly unlikely that the Suns will lose. Give me Phoenix. Moving on now to Nets-Lakers. The Nets seem to be getting on the right side of their COVID outbreak. James Harden's back. Patty Mills is back. Paul Millsap is back, DeAndre Bembry is back, and Javon Carter's back. Nick Claxton will also play, but he wasn't out because of COVID. He had a wrist injury. Look, there's no question that the Nets aren't at 100%. No Kevin Durant, no Kyrie Irving, no Bruce Brown, no LaMarcus Aldridge, and no James Johnson. But they'll be able to put out a rotation that is NBA caliber. Not like the rotations that we saw from them before the pause. I mean, all due respect to guys like David Duke and Kessler Edwards, but there is no planet where they should be playing 35 minutes per game. I mean, you'll see James Harden, Patty Mills, DeAndre Bembry, either Blake Griffin or Paul Millsap. I'd like to see Griffin, but if it's Millsap, say LaVie, and Claxton in the starting lineup. Meanwhile, on the bench, you'll see Javon Carter, the other one of Griffin and Millsap, Wenyen Gabriel, James Ennis, and Shaq Harrison. I understand that the back end of that bench isn't very good, but at least the top 7 is NBA caliber. I mean, it's possible that the Nets just run an 8-man rotation. It's possible that Carter's just the backup guard, Ennis is the backup wing, and either Griffin or Millsap is the backup big. They can do that. I'll say this, though. I'll be very interested to see what James Harden does. We know that Harden's gotten a lot of flack for not being as dominant this year as he's been in years past. Now, again, it's important to note that he's still really good. The guy's putting up 20.8 points per game, 7.9 rebounds per game, and 9.6 assists per game. He's shooting 40.4% from the field and 33.7% from beyond the arc. He's also gotten better at getting to the free throw line more. Obviously, that's a huge part of his game. I understand that you may not like it, but, you know, if you want Harden putting up 25, 30 points a game, that's how he's going to do it. Is he getting to the line as much this year as he's gotten to the line in years past? No. Not even now when he's gotten a little better at it. But the point is, James Harden is still really good. I mean, I'll say this. It would not surprise me if James Harden went off for 30 points. In fact, I think that's what should be expected of him. he's got to be the best player on the floor by far. Not even close. And I think he can be that because I have never wavered in my support of James Harden. For me to give up on him now would be foolish. I mean, there were games last year where Harden had to carry the Nets by himself, and he did. Harden's very good at making the players around him better. The Nets have a shot tomorrow. There's no question about that. Especially given how bad the Lakers are. They've lost 4 straight. They are not the juggernaut that everyone thought they'd be. No Anthony Davis right now, which is obviously hurting them. But their defense is just horrific. Seriously, who's the best defensive player on the Lakers? Is it Talon Horton Tucker? Is it LeBron? That's not good. That's not going to work. The Lakers this year have given up 112 points per game. That is the 4th worst mark in the league. Their offense may be really good, but at the end of the day, that's not enough. You've still got to get stops. And the thing is, there's nothing that can be done to improve this team except winning in the buyout market. They can't make any trades. They don't have the salaries for it. So you're going to be forced to scour the buyout market, which you can do. That's okay. But realize you're competing with a lot of other teams. Let me ask you something. Are the Lakers a desirable destination to you? They're 6th in the West right now. Does anyone look at them as a title contender? When players sign with teams after they get bought out, they sign with title contenders. There's no one that looks at the Lakers right now as a title contender. So yes, you can go to Tinseltown. Yes, you can play with LeBron. But good luck winning a title. Because you're not even the best team in your own city. The Clippers are better than the Lakers right now. Will it stay that way? I don't know. Is it possible that the Lakers right the ship? I wouldn't count LeBron out. But it's impossible to be confident in the Lakers right now. There are a lot of teams with a better chance of getting a marquee player in the buyout market. The Nets, the Suns, the Warriors, the Jazz, the Bulls, the Bucks, the Heat, they all have a better chance. The reality is, if the Lakers are going to right this ship, they've got to do it from within. And good luck. Unless you're going to fire Frank Vogel, which I'm not necessarily opposed to, but unless you're going to fire Vogel and bring someone in who gets these guys to buy in on defense, the Lakers will do nothing. At the end of the day, one thing that Steve Nash deserves a ton of credit for is getting his guys to buy in on defense. The Nets are way better defensively this year than they were last year. Maybe they've taken a little bit of a step back on offense, but that's okay because their defense is a lot better. At the end of the day, a 130-128 win looks the same in the standings as a 198 win. I don't care how you win. I just care if you win. At the end of the day, the Lakers could learn something from the Nets. Even though you have superstars, you still got to play defense if you want to win. The Nets didn't do that last year. They got eliminated in the second round. The Nets are playing defense this year. They're leading the Eastern Conference by 1.5 games. The reality is, I don't see how the Lakers make any noise this year. I mean, season ends today, they're going up against the Jazz in the playoffs. The Jazz would destroy the Lakers in a 7-game series. They'd put up 120 points every game. That's a terrible matchup for the Lakers. It's right to be pessimistic about the Lakers. I don't see how they make any noise in the playoffs. With that being said, though, the Nets haven't played in a while. They're without their best player. They're without their third best player. They're without their fourth best player. And they're without their fifth best player. The Lakers have their best player, and they have their third best player. While I think James Harden will have a great game, I don't think it'll be enough for the Nets to win. At the end of the day, LeBron James and Russell Westbrook are better than James Harden and Patty Mills. As much as it kills me to say it, I'm picking the Lakers. The last game on the docket is Mavericks Jazz. The Mavericks have gotten bit by COVID hard. No Luka Doncic. No Tim Hardaway Jr. I understand that they have Jalen Brunson. I understand that they have Dorian Finney-Smith. But Kristaps Porzingis has a toe injury, because of course he does. Talk about injury-prone players. It's kind of interesting. You remember in the offseason I was calling for the Nets to trade Joe Harris and DeAndre Jordan for Kristaps Porzingis? Would the Nets be better off with Porzingis if they made that trade? I mean, Porzingis is struggling to shoot this year. He's shooting just 28.3% from beyond the arc. He's doing most of his damage inside. The Nets don't need another guy like that. So yeah, while Porzingis is putting up almost 20 points a game, from a scheme perspective, I don't know how good of a fit it would have been. I think it could have worked, but I also think it could have blown up in the Nets' face. Meanwhile, you look at the Jazz, they have a clean bill of health. They have the best offense in the NBA. They are leading the league in points per game with 115.8. Pop quiz, you know who's second? And this will surprise you. The Charlotte Hornets. The Hornets right now are the 9 seed in the East. You know why? Because they have the worst defense in the NBA. The Hornets are averaging 114.9 points per game this year. They've given up 116.8 points per game. That's not going to get the job done. The importance of defense, something that the Lakers and Hornets could really benefit from learning. The Jazz this year are absolutely stacked. They have 5 players averaging over 13 points per game. Donovan Mitchell is fantastic. Bojan Bogdanovic is shooting the lights out. Rudy Gobert is one of the best centers in the NBA. Jordan Clarkson could win 6th Man of the Year for a second straight year. Mike Conley still getting the job done. Rudy Gay's been a really good 6th man. Joe Ingles is shooting the lights out. This is a scary Jazz team. This is a Jazz team that can make a ton of noise in the playoffs. It would not stun me if they beat the Warriors in a 7-game series. It wouldn't stun me if they beat the Suns in a 7-game series. They are that good. I think this game will be a rout. I think you can go to bed pretty early after drinking your 12th glass of eggnog. I think the Jazz will win. So yeah, I picked every home team. I did not do that on purpose. Alright, now I'll give you some college football Valk talk. And I was really upset watching the Frisco Football Classic. Not because I got the game wrong. Alright? At the end of the day, I'm going to make wrong picks. It's what happens when you make picks. No, I was upset because DeAndre Torrey didn't play. That story came out like an hour before kickoff that he wasn't going to play. If I had known that Torrey wasn't going to play, of course I'd pick the Red Hawks. Of course the Mean Green would have no chance without him. Torrey's their best player. You don't want Austin Orn throwing 32 passes. Austin Orn is useless. I mean, I don't know why Torrey didn't play. I don't know if it was because he wanted to preserve his draft stock. I don't know if it was because of an injury. I honestly have no idea. But the fact that he didn't play meant that North Texas had no chance. It's just that simple. Of course the Red Hawks would win. Of course they'd be the better team from the outset. Give Brett Gabbert a ton of credit. He looked really good. He completed 22 of his 31 passes for 228 yards and 2 touchdowns. Kenny Tracy was really good, which surprised me. He had 14 carries for 92 yards and a touchdown. Keyon Mosey was really good, which surprised me too. He had 9 carries for 77 yards. Jack Sorensen was really good, 7 catches for 116 yards. Defensively, everyone showed up for the Red Hawks, which doesn't surprise me because without Torrey, the Mean Green have no one. If I had known that he wasn't going to play, I would have picked the Red Hawks. Like, that's what upsets me. I gave you wrong information. If I was just doing these picks for fun, like in an offline pool, okay. You know, I can live with that. It would still upset me, but it would upset me less than if I gave you wrong information. But at the time I gave it, it was correct. It just ticks me off that Torrey didn't play, and we don't know why. Now, if it was to preserve his draft stock, you know how I feel about that. I don't like that. But I can't tell you how many people sent me the clip of Justin Shorter getting absolutely hammered as Exhibit A for why I shouldn't begrudge players for sitting out of bowl games. Look, that was an incredibly big hit. It was not a dirty hit. At the end of the day, Quadric Bullard is just trying to break up the pass. I don't think anyone has an issue with what he did. It was just the impact that it had on Shorter. I mean, he needed to go to the hospital afterwards. Now, he's left the hospital, but it's a scary moment, right? See, the thing is, though, football's a violent game. Like, that's gonna happen. At the end of the day, that's a fluke thing. It's sad. It's unfortunate. In a perfect world, it would never happen. But sadly, that can happen. That's not a risk that you can avoid entirely. Like, if you're that scared by getting hit like that, you're in the wrong business. look, I understand the point that people are making, but it's a slippery slope. Do we really want to advise players not to play in bowl games because they may get hit hard? What do you think's going to happen in the NFL? You're going to get hit harder and more frequently. No, the shorter injury, as sad as it was, didn't change my mind at all about players sitting out of bowl games. I still think it's incredibly selfish. As for the rest of the game, it was a very chippy game, very physical game, which is to be expected. There is a little bit of a rivalry there between the Florida schools. I understand that they don't play each other regularly, but still, if you got a Florida team going up against a Florida team in Florida, that's going to bring out some emotion. But UCF was the better team by far. There was really never a moment where I thought the Knights would lose. Mikey Keene made smart decisions with the football. Isaiah Bowser was absolutely insane. 35 carries for 155 yards and 2 touchdowns. Let me ask you this. What's more impressive? Your total body of work, or the fact that you carried the ball 35 times and scored 2 touchdowns in a rivalry bowl game? The answer is the latter. That can only help Bowser's draft stock. And UCF was really creative in how they got the ball in the hands of Ryan O'Keefe. They had him run some jet sweeps, some gadget plays. It was very impressive. Give UCF credit. They really were the better team in this game. They were the better team going into it. You knew it was going to be tough sledding for Florida in this game. But with Billy Napier taking over, the future is very bright. There is a bowl game that's going to happen tomorrow. It's the Camellia Bowl, Ball State versus Georgia State. When you look at the Cardinals, they're actually a pretty well-rounded team. They don't do anything great, but they do everything pretty well. Drew Plitt is a solid quarterback. Game manager type, makes smart decisions. He's not bad, but he's not great. Carson Steele, their running back, has 829 rushing yards and 6 touchdowns. Again, not bad, not great. Their 2 big wide receivers, Jason Jackson and Justin Hall. In fact, I'll throw in Johannes Tyler too, since he's leading the Cardinals in touchdowns, are all solid, not great. Ball State epitomizes the term jack of all trades, master of none. Defensively, they're solid. Anthony Ekpe, Christian Albright, Bryce Cosby, Malcolm Lee, Tavion Woodward, Brett Anderson II, and John Harris all have talent. I wouldn't say any of them are great. Christian Albright's really, really good, though. I'll say that. He's going to make a big impact in this game. I mean, give Mike New credit. He's built a solid program at his alma mater. I don't think anyone can be upset at the job that he's done. He hasn't been great, but he hasn't been terrible. Meanwhile, you look at the Panthers, they have more firepower. Darren Granger is a pretty darn good dual threat quarterback. He doesn't kill you with his arm, but he has the ability to. 16 touchdowns to 4 interceptions. He's not a bad thrower of the football. He's just not great. but he can kill you with his legs. He has 553 rushing yards this year. For a quarterback, that's pretty darn good. And Tucker Gregg and Jamiest Williams both have over 800 rushing yards. They both have 9 touchdowns. Like I said, the Panthers have firepower. They also have a really good offensive line. Like, that's part of the reason why their rushing attack is so good. Travis Glover, Shamarius Gilmore, Malik Sumter, Pat Bartlett, and Jonathan Bass are really, really talented players. The Panthers do have a really, really, really impressive O-line. You can have firepower on the O-line. There's no question about that. And you can definitely have firepower on defense, which the Panthers have. Guys like Thomas Gore, Dante Wilson, Jameel Muhammad, Chris Moore, Akeem Smith, Ja'Cory Crawford, Shamar McCollum, Javon Dennis, etc., etc. The Panthers are stacked. The Panthers really should be better than 7-5. The thing is, though, they had a very, very tough non-conference schedule. Their 3 non-conference games, they went 1-3. They got destroyed by Army. Army was a good team this year. They got creamed by UNC. UNC was not a bad team this year. That game should have been closer, but it was in North Carolina. UNC was ranked at the time. I'm not going to kill the Panthers for that loss. They beat Charlotte. They lost to Auburn at Auburn by 10. That was an impressive loss, if there is such a thing. But still, you're starting out the season 1-3. Then you open up conference play with a big loss to Appalachian State. But App State was really good this year. They went 10-4. They lost to the Raging Cajuns, which went 13-1. Look, I understand that part of being great is beating good teams. But at the end of the day, if Georgia State had scheduled an easier early part of their schedule, if they had played more teams like Charlotte, they'd have a much more impressive record. The Panthers are better than their record indicates. There's no question about that. I think this is going to be a very, very comfortable win for Georgia State. I hope you have a very Merry Christmas. I hope you spend it with people who love you, people who care about you. Hope you watch some good sports. Hope you celebrate the 2-year anniversary of this show in style. That will be on Sunday. Here's hoping the Jets can win for me. They're playing the Jaguars at JetLife. The Jets better win that game. You will get an instant recap of that game. Brooklyn Nets show comes your way Monday night. Regular episodes of the Jacob Valk show come your way every weekday afternoon. Until next time, I'm Jacob Valk, and always remember, if you disagree with me, you're wrong.